Hello, thank you for joining us for our Leadership Acceleration series. This is the third event that we have put on specifically for Resultants clients to help provide additional leadership tips and tricks, so help them to be the most efficient and wonderful team they can be. So my name is Katie Pierce. I am a client account manager and the marketing manager with the Resultants, and I will be assisting Gary in the presentation. So I'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. So if there are any questions during the presentations, just throw them in there and we can answer them as we go. We don't have to wait till the end, but there will be additional time at the end for questions. So everyone will be muted if we get to a point where you want to ask a question. Just raise your hand and I can unmute you and we can do that then. So we do have a few more events coming up in 2020. So be on the lookout for information from me and your business advisor regarding those events. And now I would like to introduce you to Gary Braun. He's a partner with Pivotal Advisors. And some of you are working with or have worked with Pivotal and may be familiar with the great work that they do. So as a premier partner of ours, we strongly recommend them, and we look forward to what Gary is going to present to us this morning. So now I'll hand it over to you.
Talking today on executing your sales strategy, and this is an area where a lot of companies fall down, and I know if you're part of EOS, you're all about execution, but for some reason sales seems to lag a little bit. So we're gonna dive into this meaty topic here. Okay, here we go. So agenda, okay, we're having all kinds of fun technical stuff going on. Okay, so quick agenda here. We'll talk about pivotal. Holy cow, we're all over the board. Apologize. Wow, we are having some issues this morning. All right, so agenda, brief background on Pivotal Advisors, and I emphasize the word brief, just so you know who we are and what we do and whatnot. The presentation, we're really going to get into three pieces that we think are key to executing in sales. The planning, the process, and the management, and it really boils down into the planning is what they should do, the process is how, and then the performance management is staying focused, and this is where people fall down a lot. And then we'll do some wrap up and takeaways. So pretty quick and straight to the point agenda. As Katie said, let's make this interactive. We love doing these things in person and it's fun to get into groups and whatnot. Can't do that today, but put your questions in chat, raise your hand. We'll unmic you, we can talk. Let's make this as interactive as we can. I've never been a fan sitting on the other end of these things, waiting until the end because your questions lose context and whatnot. So in the moment, if you got a question, raise your hand and let's talk about it. And my goal today is we get awareness of things that you could improve in your execution in the sales area, and then give you some ideas on things that you can do better. So quickly about Pivotal Advisors. Our whole deal is we talk about building healthy sales organizations, and we define that as sales organizations that are predictable. We're not riding that roller coaster of up and down on sales. We're profitable and we're consistent. We're doing it all the time. You can see some of the clients we've dealt with to the left, but we've dealt with nearly 300 organizations, almost all of them right here in the Twin Cities area. And the commonality with a lot of these companies is they get to a certain point in their growth and they plateau. And they plateau for several reasons. A lot of it is what got them there is not what's going to get them to the next level. What got them there is people wear lots of hats. People do all types of interesting things. They share duties. They could be the one who sold it, and then they go to the dock and help deliver it or implement it, and then the customer service on the back end. That's not super scalable. The other part is a lot of things are in people's heads, and it's not written down. And when somebody new comes in, they don't have all that experience of the core people on the team, and they have a hard time catching on. So we're all about, when companies get to that point, how do I get repeatable process and systems and structure in place to help them scale to the next level? The filter that we look at things with is this, and we call it our sales performance factors, but we say we got to have a strategy. We got to know where we're going. EOS is great for helping you define that. We have to have the right people on the team. And beyond just having the right people on the team, we have to have the right people systems. That means we have to be really good at knowing what we're looking for when we hire. We have to have good interview process selection systems. Even if we hire them, we have to have good onboarding systems. Too many companies right now, their onboarding is a week or two of sitting in a classroom or a conference room and learning everything that you can about somebody or about the company and the industry and the products. And then you shadow a few people and you're good to go. You are now, quote, trained and free to go. And that's not a very good onboarding system. We look at process. I'll put planning in there as well, and we'll talk a lot about that today. But a repeatable sales process that anybody can execute well. My previous company, before we started Pivotal Advisors, I was with a company called Digital River, and we grew from, in my 11 years there, we grew from $1 million in revenue to $400 million in revenue. I was the 23rd employee when I left. We had 1,400 employees. This was a key part of it. We had a process that worked. We had a play that worked. And we'll throw planning in there as well, because I think that's a piece for how you hit your number. We need good measurement. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today as well. But everybody measures sales. That's easy. I also want to measure the things that lead to sales and use that as part of my performance management, which goes into the rewards and recognition. Everybody goes to comp right away when it comes to rewards and recognition. That's a key piece, but the performance management and I'll say those non-comp rewards that you do, catching people doing the right things, reinforcing the behaviors you want to see, that drives performance just as much. And then execution, the last one, how do I make all this real? So how do I make sure that people are doing, executing the strategy and the people systems are working and we're actually doing the process? This includes our cadence for how often we get together as a team, one-on-ones, how I coach, how I reinforce things, and that's all part of execution. We think that all 6 of these things are critical to have a healthy sales organization. And here's the fascinating part. The person who's responsible for all of that is the sales leader who sits in the middle. And most of the time they have not been trained on any of this. They were a great seller and they got promoted, and now they're automatically overnight supposed to know how to do all of these things. And that's a problem that we run into. I'm not going to go into all of these things. I've said a lot of those things, but we break it down into a lot of detail. You see things like ideal clients and differentiation. You see things like, systems and progress on initiatives. We're going to touch on a few of these today that we see are most common when it comes to problems that people have when it comes to executing. So how we fit into the whole mix. You guys are all EOS fanatics. You're into the program. Resultants are great for helping you define your mission and vision and values. You do your annuals, you do your quarterlies, you get your accountabilities and accountability charts set and whatnot. And then we break it into rocks. And you might have finance goals and rocks. You might have sales goals and rocks. You have ops goals and rocks. That's awesome. Where we play is we're all about the sales rock. We're all about, okay, we got the rock. We know what we want to do. We're about the execution system on the back end. How do we make sure that this really happens? So that's how we fit. We've had a really good partnership with resultants, back and forth, bringing each other into deals, because we're very complementary to each other. So this is where I want some interactive part if we can. Raise your hand in the little features or put something into chat, but why is this so hard? We make our plan, we roll it out to the team. Why don't people just do what we say? So I'd love to hear some feedback from anybody out there.
There's no follow through and no follow up.
Absolutely true. Anybody else? There are so many opportunities, it's easy to lose focus. That is an absolute truth. And we veer from our strategy pretty quickly. Yes, it is challenging without face-to-face. That's where process is important. We need to amend our processes based on our new environment that we're in. Leadership can be a big distraction. Oh my gosh, yes, leadership. We have everybody's heard the term squirrel before. We run into that a lot. Um, we've got our strategy, we got our process, but then something cool looks like an opportunity. And again, no consistent following up. Yes, and the sales leader doesn't know how to handle all this stuff. So we're getting the idea. All right, let's keep moving here. So here's what we see happen all the time. You guys go into your annual meetings, your vision days, you do all that kind of stuff. We analyze, we brainstorm, we come up with cool ideas. We've got milestones that we come up with. We do all kinds of things. If you've never heard of something called the marathon effect, this is what's going on. And in a marathon, if you think about a marathon, the people at the front are usually the competitors, the people who do this all the time, the people who win these things. And the gun goes off and they fly and they are taken off and get 5 minutes into the race and they are way out ahead of everybody else. And then the people like us in the back are going, did you guys hear a gun? I think we're starting. And by the time we actually cross the starting line, the people in front are probably a mile into the race. This is what happens here. The leadership team comes up with all of these things. Sometimes it's even worse. It's a person, the CEO or the owner, doing this by themselves. We do all the work, we do all the thought, we do all the analysis, we do all this, and then we roll it out to the sales team. We are the marathon effect, way the heck ahead of everybody else. And we roll it out to the team and we think we're super crisp and clear. But then we ask the sales team, and again, I'll go back to, we've worked with nearly 300 companies. We ask the sales teams, what's the strategy? What's the focus? What are the initiatives? What are you trying to get done? And what we hear back are things like, I don't know, boy, they came up with some crazy plan and our goals are really high and we're not even sure how they came up with it, but hey, we're going to bust our butt. I can't tell you, EOS companies are not. I can't tell you how many times we've had that feedback from the sales team. So this is obviously a disconnect. This is a problem that we deal with. So here's some of the reasons that we see from dealing with so many companies. A, they don't understand it. Again, we've got the marathon effect. We understand it really well. We're not giving them all the stuff on the backside onto why we're doing it and what we're trying to get done. Because of that, a lot of times we don't believe the strategy. We don't buy into the strategy. And then we leave it to the salesperson to decide what the strategy is, and they just do whatever they think. Sometimes they understand the strategy, which is awesome, but I don't know how to do it. If you told the team, we're going to go after this new market or we're going to penetrate this new segment of customers, they go, cool, got it, boss. I'm good on that. How do I do that again? And we've got to disconnect there. Whenever we change strategy or we crystallize strategy and it might be something new, adults don't like to change and it might be harder to do something new. I can't tell you how many times that we've gone into a client and they said things like, we need to diversify our portfolio. We're too concentrated on a few of our top clients. Let's go do it. And then we find out that the sales team is really made up of a bunch of farmers, account managers. They're good at maintaining and growing current accounts. They don't know how to go find new things. So our strategy is awesome, but it's harder to do that. So we fall back to what we know. And then we're not reinforcing it. Some of you put that in the comments earlier. We're not measuring it. We're not reinforcing it. We're not doing what I'll call performance management, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But we run into a problem where we've got this great strategy and we're just not reinforcing it. And then we've got this thing called commission that can really mess us up as well. We go into a lot of companies and the commission plan has not changed for 5 years, 7 years, 9 years, whatever. Our strategy has, what we're focusing on has, but the commission plan is the same. So it's not aligned with our strategy. And if I get paid the same to sell something new versus something to a current customer versus product A or product B or whatever else, if it's all the same and I just get a percentage of revenue, I'm going to do whatever's easiest or what I know best. And that creates a problem as well. And then sometimes we enforce the wrong behaviors. We have a strategy, we're going down this way, and then somebody sells something over here, which is outside of the strategy, but hey, it's a sale. So we go, way to go, this is really cool. Tell everybody what you did, this is great. And now we've completely had our strategy fall apart. And everybody else sees, well, that guy got praised for that. I'm going to do that too, and now we're not executing. So I don't know in chat if you've got any comments or feedback. Are you running into any of these? Have you seen any of these issues in your past?
Well, I think, just looking at the clients that are on here, I think many of you have heard, at least if you work with Chad, you've heard Chad talk about that, taking on the wrong sale and how, yes, you want to bring in, any kind of revenue that you can, but it doesn't help you, stay on that straight path and bring it, focus on the right things versus just kind of picking at everything.
Yeah, really well said. So here's the problems that we're dealing with. So let's get into what we do to go address this. So we think that there's three key things. There's a lot of other things, but here's the three that we come across that we think are most impactful. Yeah, the non-ideal clients, that's another good one too that we're chasing. So we got this plan. I want to take that plan and boil it all the way down to the individual level, and we'll talk about what that looks like. I want a process for not only what to execute, but how to execute it. And I know you guys are all about documenting processes and whatnot. I'm going to give you some examples today that might take it to a new level for you. And then the performance management. Are we constantly checking in? And I'm going beyond just L10s here. What are we doing with the sales team to make sure that they are executing on the things that we want them to? We're making adjustments as needed. So here's the three things that we're going to dig into in the bulk of the presentation today. So informally here in chat, if you can, all I need you to do is put in an A, B, C, or D. Which of these statements best represents your approach when it comes to sales planning? And we come across a lot of, there's not really a formalized plan. It's kind of in people's heads. Some reps have plans, some don't. That's A. B is what I'll call the big spreadsheet. We've got, we do a forecast. We list all our accounts and predict what each one's going to do by the end of the year. And that's what our plan is. C is we actually have formal plans and we actually present them to, by the salespeople, to the executives at the start of the year. But a lot of the times they fall by the wayside. And then the last one is we actually have a plan. We develop it, we present it, we review it, everything throughout the year. See some answers coming in. B, C. Got some C's here. B's. Okay, a lot of B's and C's. All right. Really common, don't feel bad if that's where you're at, really common. And for you, B's and C's, it's good, it's a start. I don't think having a plan at the start of the year is much good if we just let it go away. It's kind of an exercise. A lot of times we go in there and we say, when do you pull out your plan? They go, next year when I have to make my new plan, and I dust off the old one and tweak it and I submit the new one. So that doesn't do much good either. So we're going to talk about a better way to do that and what we think a good plan looks like. So common sales plannings. I have asked this question, I bet, to at least 1,000 salespeople without exaggeration. How are you going to hit your goal? And the answers I get back are, well, I'm going to work hard. Okay, that's not a plan. You know, that's good work ethic, but that's not a plan. But that's certainly what I hear back. More often, I see the spreadsheet that I talked about. Here's a list of all the accounts. Here's what I think they're going to do. Let's go get them. It doesn't take into account how I'm going to do that with all of those accounts. But hey, it's a start. And that's probably one of the most common planning things that I see. And I wouldn't even call it a plan. I'd call it a forecast. And then the full plan, which we're going to dig into a little bit more. So when we think about a plan, this drives buy-in. This is also sets up for accountability. When we get involved with a client, we want, and their sales team, we want them to really look at here's all my accounts, my territory, my resellers, my whatever you're selling to. I want to look at this and I want to start by analyzing what went right, what went wrong, which accounts are up, which are down, which are at risk. Are there competitors in the area? What's the economy doing? I want to really understand what's going on and not just, put the number on the spreadsheet and understand what's going on. We had one client we went into, and when they did their analysis, they came back and their plan came back and said they were going to do a lot less the year before. And the manager got all upset and said, "What, you're predicting you're going to do less?" They said, "Yeah, absolutely. And here's why. Last year, I got $500,000 because somebody's warehouse burned down and they had to use insurance money and buy everything back. I can't replicate that unless you want me to go start committing arson. So yes, I'm going to start at a lower base this year." That made sense. And now we put together a plan that was achievable because it didn't have, a fire built into it. I want to look at things like that. If you see a particular product segment taking off, let's make that go up. But we do some analysis on the front end. Then we get into the financial plan, which we'll show you in a second. And that's kind of like the spreadsheet with some additional things. Then I want an activity plan. A lot of you will break this down into rocks. I want to get to a little bit more detail on what that activity plan looks like. And here's where a lot of plans miss, I believe. I want risks in my plan. So I want to say, this client is on the rocks. They've been hammered on by the competition. We had some customer service issues. We could lose them. That's a risk in my plan. So here's how I'm going to mitigate it. I'm going to be, prospecting for more clients. I am bringing our team out there to get tighter with them and fix any issues. But I have come up with some activities because there's risk in my plan. I see very few plans out there right now that really account for any risks. And then, anybody will tell you any good plan lasts for about a quarter and then stuff goes completely. I want to look forward and try to predict those things and have a mitigation plan when they do happen. And then the last one is assumptions. My assumptions in the plan might be, and think about a year ago when people were putting together their plan, that, hey, I'm going to be able to go to these 5 trade shows and generate leads. I'm going to be able to have this much travel. I'm going to be able to get this many leads from marketing, et cetera, et cetera. If that's what's built into my plan, and I've had salespeople present these plans to the bosses, and the bosses will say either, "Yep, that looks good," or "No, we're actually not going to that show this year," or "We're not, we're cutting back on travel." Okay, let's have a talk because that's going to affect what my plan looks like. This is a great conversation between the salespeople, the sales leader, and the CEO. We're big fans of the salesperson putting together this plan and presenting it and making sure we're all on the same page. And I note the word buy-in on the top. If it is the salesperson's plan, it's a good plan in their mind, and they have buy-in to their plan. They put it together, and we're trying to drive this buy-in on the plan. If we sit down and we present this plan back to management and it's not supporting the strategy, we're not supporting the right clients, we don't have the right assumptions built in, this is a good time to get aligned. And when we're all aligned, then we have buy-in and we say, cool, now just go execute your plan. So let's start with the financial plan. This will look a little like the spreadsheet that I referred to earlier, the big forecast. And what we like to do is, you put in, and by the way, if you want some of these tools, just email me. I'll put my email address at the end of the presentation, and I'd be happy to send some of these out to you. But here's the financial plan. I've got a revenue goal. You might have a profit goal. Not everybody has that. So we got my margin. I know what my opportunity size is. We just kind of straight line, or we didn't. We've got goals by month, so we're accounting for seasonality. We've got, now we've looked at all our accounts and we did our prediction on what we think we're going to get. And when we're all done and we put this in based on our analysis, not just kind of the thumb in the air, but on the analysis, we put it all together, and guess what? There's a gap. All my accounts add up to this. There's $375,000 I have to go find. this is a great analysis. This isn't just putting in numbers until the spreadsheet works out. This is really analyzing, what do I need to do? That's part of the financial plan. Then I go to, how much activity do I need? This is a great tool that we've got out there, the activity calculator. Do it at the start of the year, and this actually keeps your plan alive. So at the start of the year, I say, if I've got $1 million, and by the way, this would be zero, and this would be zero, and there's 52 weeks left, and I've put in here what I think are my best conversion rates. I think that 25% of my leads turn into a meeting, and my, half of my meetings turn into opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. And I've plugged in all of this stuff. The outputs on the other side tell me how much I need to do. I need to get X amount of meetings or opportunities per month, per week, whatever. I've got a mid-year one going on right now. It says, okay, we're middle of the year or more. I've sold this much. These much are like verbals or waiting, or we're ready to deliver or whatnot. And I've got 20 weeks left. So this tells me I need to be focused on 9 meetings a month. I need to get 4.5 or 5 opportunities per month. I need to get 1 a week. That's what it's really going to boil down to. This is a great way to keep your plan alive. I need to close 2 deals a month, or basically 1 every other week here. And if we pull this up every week or every other week and we're looking at it, it recalibrates. What do I need to do? What do I need to focus on? This is part of your plan. This is to know how much activity I need to do. What are my leading indicators I need to be focused on? So now we've done our financial goals with the big spreadsheet. We've done our activity goals. And then part of the plan is really achieving the how. So who am I pursuing? Is this coming out of current accounts? Do I need to get new accounts? Am I going to events? Gee, all our events blew up because of COVID. What am I going to do now? Am I going to be doing webinars? Am I going to be doing mailings? How am I going to be finding this? Am I going to network with new people? What industries am I going to chase? Make them define it. Make your salespeople put these things down. This is part of their plan and the things that they need to do, and their assumptions and their risks in there. And now this creates some accountability. So how are we gonna break this into this month or this quarter? And how often are we gonna get together to make sure that it's actually happening? We go through these things. Now we have a plan that is created by them, so they have buy-in, and there's enough detail and direction that we can hold them accountable to specific things. This goes beyond, I love the rocks. Believe me, I love rocks. I want to take those rocks and break them down into a lot more detail that we can manage to. And that's really about what the plan is. And then we keep the plan alive. All right, and keep us moving here. For the sake of time, we're going to talk a little bit about sales process. By the way, if you guys have questions as we're going through, again, don't be shy about raising your hand, putting something in chat. I want to make sure that we're answering this. Or if you have questions about what we're doing, I want to make sure we're answering it in the moment.
We do have a question that just came in. How often do you recommend people revisit their activity planning?
If I go back to this, personally, I like to look at it every week. I do this with my team. We sit down, we look, are we on track? Are we off track? Are we getting our 4 or 5 opportunities a month? Did we get any this week? I'm constantly looking at it. Too often performance gets reviewed on your annual review, and now it's too late to do anything. So I like keeping this alive all of the time.
Great. I've got another one too. How would you suggest adjusting it for new versus senior salespeople?
Oh, great question. These numbers all change, and obviously your goals probably going to be changed. Your conversion rates are probably going to be changed. The best companies I've seen, doesn't happen a lot, but you get into the very large sophisticated companies, they actually have a ramp up. They know how long it's going to take for a new person to go. They know what their conversion rates are for a new person versus a tenured person. Right here, we've got 50% of our deals, our proposals turn into deals. On a new person, that's probably going to be 30%. Adjust these numbers down. What is that going to do? That's going to make them need more leads, need more discovery meetings, need more of these things, which is true. When you get into a brand new company, you need to do a lot of groundwork on the front end. But basically we're adjusting some numbers here. And if I can go back one more, well, so now we're going to talk a little bit about how they execute. Now they know what to execute. We'll get into the how. So again, in your chat, your A, B, C, D, which of these best describes your sales process? No formal process is not written down. It's largely in people's heads. It is written down and some people follow it. It's written down, most people follow it, but we're not really measuring or reviewing it. And then the last one, we live process. It's formal, it's written, it's followed by all, we were, etc. So put in chat, we got C, B, A. We got a C, so we got a few people who got it written down. That's good. Anybody else?
Yeah, we have a couple C's, B's, A.
Okay.
I have another question in here too that maybe came in while we were having some issues. Says, in terms of activity plans and sales planning, do you advocate plans to be shared with the whole sales team or keeping those private to the individual?
I'm a fan of the salesperson. I don't think there's anything around privacy unless people are competing for accounts or anything like that, which I'm not a big fan of. I'm not sure there's a lot of benefit of everybody sitting through everybody's plan. I've been in those meetings. I care about my plan and if I'm on the right page, but I've sat in meetings where all the sales team takes turns presenting their plan up, and I'm just not sure there's a lot of value there. Maybe if it's an educational thing, I don't think there is. I'm a big fan of it's the salesperson, the sales leader, and then the executive. And by the way, if the executive is part of that meeting, salespeople put a little bit more effort into that plan. So I like them taking turns presenting what their plan is, and then I can talk individually about your plan, your risk, your assumptions. If I'm doing that, there's not a lot of, and it's specific to you and your account base or your territory or whatnot, there's not a lot of benefit to the rest. But good question. All right, let's move forward. This is a simplified look, but this is how we look at sales process. And I'm going to tell you that this is an example here, and the stages might be different, but the framework is essentially the same regardless. And in this sample, we're looking at 5 stages basically. I qualify them, I do discovery, and I understand about their needs and whatnot. Then I might do a demo for them. Then I send my proposal. Now they're an active customer, and I do different things with them. Again, yours are different maybe, but this is a general framework. What we like to do if we set it up is get that column down the left. What is my goal at each stage? What are the specific things I do at each stage? Are there tools or resources I use here? And then probably the biggest thing on here is what we'll call a toll gate or a customer commitment, is I don't leave this stage until these things happen. Now, the first time I talk to a customer, my job is not to sell them something unless it's super transactional stuff. First time I talk to a customer is probably to qualify them to determine if they're a fit for us and vice versa. And I might ask a bunch of questions, and my goal is really to move them to discovery stage. So I'm going to ask them questions about their size, their needs, very particular things, their revenue, how many people they have, what are they using today. I'm going to do some general qualifying questions, and I might even have a tool down here, like we call it a qualification criteria document that says, here's the things that you need to qualify them to. If they don't fit, don't chase them anymore. Say, great, thanks for your time, I don't think we're a fit, and you move on. But we've got some criteria that we're looking at. For some companies we've worked with, they might even have the right company, but then they also have what they'll call an opportunity criteria. So I might be working with Toro because Toro is a great ideal customer fit, but they come at me with this project that is way outside. So I might have criteria around that to know whether I should even pursue that opportunity or not. And then my toll gate at the bottom for a qualification is they took a meeting. Okay, cool. Discovery is probably one of the bigger, more important things. And really my goal there, again, not to sell them something. When I first talk to you, it's really to understand what their needs are. I want to understand the buying process. I want to understand their criteria. I want to understand what they're doing today. What are they trying to get done? That's my goal. And there's a bunch of activities I might meet with one or more people. A lot of times there's multiple decision makers or influencers. Little activities like I'm going to create my opportunity in CRM. It's so funny. I talk to salespeople, and some of them, if I notice that you answered an email, it's an opportunity, and I put it in the system. Other people don't want to be hounded by their boss because I just want to keep under the radar. So until the ink is almost dry, I'm not putting into the system as an opportunity. Let's get clear on what we want here. And then there might be tools here, and we'll talk about some of these tools. But here's a list of questions or a library of questions you could be asking. We use something called the findings worksheet. That is, here's where we record all the information that we've got coming in. We might have planners and things like that. I don't leave discovery until I've got what we call BANT information. I've understood the budget, authority, need, and timing. Too often, we'll get into something along these lines, and a less experienced rep, I'll be going, Katie, yeah, this is how this works. And you'll be, this is awesome. This is really cool. Can you give me a proposal? And a less experienced rep goes, yup. And immediately we jump from discovery all the way over to proposal, and we've skipped all of the important steps in between. And because we've done that, I've lost my ability to differentiate. I've lost my ability to really understand their buying process. I might not even be at the right people. I've lost my ability to justify the impact I can have or do my ROI on there. And now they have the pricing, they know a little bit about the product, and they don't need to talk to me anymore because they've got everything they need, and this opportunity just sits in the pipeline. A good salesperson sits at that discovery step, and somebody says to them, this is awesome, can you get me pricing? And they say, I would love to get you pricing. There's a heck of a lot more I need to learn to make sure I'm even proposing the right thing, and to understand how this fits into your thing. Can I ask you some more questions? And we work through this until I get to those toll gates at the end and I have what I need. And then I like to dictate the process. The next step in our process is not really a proposal. I want to show you what our solution is to make sure it meets your needs. If it doesn't meet your needs, the price doesn't matter. So our next step is to show you what it is and see if it meets your needs, and then I can get a proposal. Does that sound good? Here's what I found. You guys sell your products every day. You have a process. They don't buy your products every day. They don't have a process. And if you say this is what our process is, most of them will go, sure, that works. Some of them go, no, this is how I want it to work, and you agree on what the process is. But this is a great way to stick to a process. What I love about, we call this a sales process matrix. This is a clear roadmap for how somebody should execute a deal, and it's a great way to drive accountability and execution. If a salesperson comes to me and says, boss, I am quoting this and here's what's going on, and I start asking questions about, well, tell me about the decision-making process and who have you met with and what are their needs? How much money is this going to make them, save them, avoid risk, whatever? And they can't answer that. I can pull this out and go, wait a minute, it doesn't sound like we're following the process. We are not in a position to propose this yet. You need to go back to the customer and back up in this process and understand these things. This is a great way to reinforce execution. And it takes a while to go and build this, but at the same time, once you get it, this is the playbook. And if we know this play works, we run this play over and over again. In my, I mentioned earlier, in our great growth, hyper growth at my last company, this was probably one of the keys. Everybody had their process and we lived by it. We trained new people to it. We reinforced it. We coached to it. And when people ran this, they were successful and the close rates went up and the sales cycle shrunk. When they went off the rails and did their own gig, they didn't make it. So having this written down and reinforced and coached to is a huge piece. So go to the next one, Katie. And then there's something, and you can click one more time. There's something magic about tools. So we have something called a discussion document. It guides a conversation. In Pivotal Advisors world, we have a little 5x7 card here that talks about the, what makes a healthy sales organization. This drives the conversation. When I sit down with you, I can go, here's how we think all these, wrong way, here we go. Here's how we think all of these things work. By the way, let's talk about growth strategy. Let's talk about people. Let's talk about process. And it just guides the conversation. Otherwise, you just got a salesperson showing up and talking or just throwing stuff at them. But this is a great tool to guide your discussion. And most companies can have some form of that. You can use things like case studies or marketing collaterals. Questions to ask. Off to the right, we worked with one company and they sold to health systems. And they had a different version of this depending on who they talked to. Because if I was talking to the chief medical officer, they cared about very different things than the director of IT who had to implement the system. So we had, if you're in front of this person, here's the questions you ask. If you're in front of this person, here's the questions you ask. And these questions came from sitting with all of the top salespeople and saying, what do you ask? Why do you ask that? What are you trying to get at? What about this question? And we accumulated all their best practices and put it in something that we can now train to and reinforce. We do something called stakeholder analysis. It's kind of what I alluded to a second ago. It is, how do I talk to each of the various different stakeholders in there? The CEO versus the VP of Ops versus the IT person versus the whoever would be in that. Things like ROI calculators. Standardize a deck, a presentation deck. Make it configurable so they can customize it somewhat for the customer, but have a standardized deck. If you're going to do demos, here's how you do a demo. I have the word script on here. I'm not big on scripts, but here is the steps that you follow when you do a demo. There's something magic about the tools. If you have the tool and you have something to relate to, people tend to follow it. If we just train them on it and say, go get them, they tend to veer away from it. So how does style and individualization come into play? Yes, I do like giving them leeway. If I think back about the sales process matrix that we just talked about, I don't care how you uncover BANT, budget, authority, need, timing. I don't care how you differentiate. I don't care how you get at the information, but get it. You use your own style, use your own questions, use your own whatever. But the step itself is most important. Your style is going to be dictated by you, but the step itself doesn't change. That's a great question. That one comes up a lot. Okay, let's go forward, Katie. So why does this matter? So this is just Gary talking here, which is great. There's been a lot of research done in this area. CSO Insights is a great resource. They do studies on everything up and down. They survey thousands of companies across all different sizes of companies, industries of companies, different verticals, different everything else. And they constantly come back. The numbers change a little bit each year, but they constantly come back. And when they say level 4 companies, which are the ones that are living and breathing process, and they're reviewing it and they're measuring it and they're looking at leading indicators and they're making adjustments, those companies outperform all other companies. Well, you can see the numbers yourself. And the big one here is they don't discount as much. They're really good at building their value. They shrink those sales cycles. So from the time somebody's interested to it's sold, they follow the process. That shrinks. They're great at differentiating and upselling, cross-selling. And they just outperform the heck out of them. That question I asked you earlier about, do I have a process or not? There's no formula, it's written down. That's your level 1, 2, 3s right there. Level 4s are the ones that are really good at it. So if you found yourself in the 1, 2, 3, it's written down or it's not written down or not following it, this is why we want to get to that level 4. This is why we want to have a detailed sales process. Go ahead. Okay, now we're going to move into the last section, which is really performance management. I'd love to get your chat here on this as well. So, which of these statements most closely represents your company's sales performance management? And I'm going to talk about performance management not as I'm giving feedback, I'm going to define it as we sit down and talk with a salesperson about, do we have enough activity? Do we have enough in the pipeline? What's our close rate look like? Is it meeting our standard there? Is our deal size meeting our standard? But we're talking about performance. We're not just talking about deals. So in your company, which of these best represents? We're not doing that. We do it annually. We talk about performance only if there's an issue. That one comes up a lot. Or we're doing it all the time. I see an A in there. That happens a lot. And the belief is if we just hire really good people, they'll manage themselves. Yes and no. I will tell you, I went in, I was doing a fractional sales management with one company, and they had 5 salespeople, and the top salesperson of those 5 carried 60% of the revenue. This was your superstar. And I came in and I said, we're going to meet every week and we're going to talk about, do we have enough activity, and are we hitting all the right things, and are we executing on what we do? You can imagine this guy who is the big dog in there is going, oh, great. Yeah, this is wonderful. Gary gets to check up on my work. And we met about 3 or 4 times, and about the 4th or 5th time he came back and he goes, I get it now. I'm like, okay, what do you get? He goes, I was so upset that you said you were going to check to see if I was doing the right things, because we defined them every week what the right things were, that I made sure that I got them done Monday or Tuesday, and then I didn't have to worry about them. And now here I am a month later going, I'm getting all my really important stuff done. Well, that's what it's all about. I'm not trying to teach you how to do anything. I'm just trying to keep you focused. And from that point on, we had an awesome relationship. But even the best people need to make sure that they stay focused, because they can get off the rails. So we got everything from A to D on this one. So we're all over the board on performance management. Katie, let's go forward and we can talk about what it looks like. We see 2 things. Some sales leaders, it's gut feel. I see people do things, I make decisions about what they're doing. I hear what they tell me, their stories, and I make decisions on that. I'm constantly looking at results to see where people are at, and I'm highly reactive. I would put over half of sales leaders in this left-hand bucket. And this is how they go, and they run from fire to fire and deal to deal and issue to issue, and they're constantly reacting to things. Then I see the really good ones on the right side are managing from data. Yes, they still observe things and they provide feedback, but I am digging into metrics. I am using that as a diagnostic to spot coaching opportunities. I'm looking at leading indicators, and I am proactive about seeking out coaching opportunities. And we're going to show you what this looks like. Go to the next one if you could. Here's a typical scorecard. We go to a lot of companies. This is a generic sample, so everybody has the same goal and everything, so don't get wigged out about that. But everybody's got a goal, and then they've got some results, and then they're at a percentage of goal. And I ask CEOs all the time, okay, if this is your scorecard, how similar is this to what you have? A lot of CEOs will say really similar, a sales leader will say that. I'll say, okay, so what actions do you take with Johnny? He's only at 75% of goal. And I hear things like, well, we have to put Johnny on a performance improvement plan. Or get rid of Johnny. Some people pull the trigger faster. Some say, well, I just need to dig into what he's doing more. Well, what does dig in mean? And I get little fuzzy responses around that. I hear some people say, let's take Johnny and stick him with Susan because Susan's rocking it. I go, oh, great question. How do you manage Susan? And I hear people say, well, get out of Susan's way. She's doing a good job. I hear a lot of CEOs say, raise your quota. These are the things that I see happening. My contention is there is not nearly enough here to manage anybody's performance here. I don't have enough data. So if you could go to the next one, Katie. Here's what I can manage an entire sales organization on these numbers right here. And the first one, opportunity, can be measured a bunch of different ways. So calls or meetings or contacts or demos or proposals, some leading indicators just to say, am I getting enough at-bats? If a salesperson is not getting enough at-bats, they're never going to hit their number. So I need something to tell me if they're getting enough at-bats. Next, I want to look at Are they effective with the at-bats they're getting? What is their close ratio? Again, off to the right, there's several different ways you can measure that. But if I'm scaring them up like crazy and not closing them, that's a problem. So I need both of those things to work in harmony. And then the last one, even if I am scaring them up and I'm closing them, if they're too small, I'm never going to hit my number. If I have a $2 million quota and my average deal size is $2,000, that's a lot of deals I got to close. So I got to take a look at that. An average deal size can mean I'm selling a project. It can mean average account size. It can mean average units per order. There's a bunch of different ways to measure that, but there's some essence of size of the deals that are accounts that I'm working that make a difference. So I look at all three of these, and you can see that there's a check and balance in here. If somebody wants to fudge their numbers and they actually have 5 meetings this month, but they say they got 10 meetings this month, guess what? That hurts your close ratio because I just changed my denominator and my numerator didn't change. So these things work in check and balance with each other. Go ahead, go forward, Katie. And I like to put some expectations around that. Ideally, this comes out of their plan and out of their activity calculator. But in this example, I'm just going to set a standard and say, okay, 10 opportunities should turn into 5 proposals, which should turn into 3 deals. That 3 out of 10 is my 30% close ratio, and they should be $25,000 on average. That is my expectation. We are crystal clear right now to the rep what's expected of them. Hit the button if you could, Katie. So now I look at this and go, what is Johnny's problem? Johnny's at 75% of quota. Gee, he's working hard. He's got 12 opportunities instead of 10. About half of those are converting to proposals. That's awesome. He's even closing at a good clip, but click the button if you could. His deal size is too small. So my performance discussion with Johnny is not about work harder, dude. I'm not putting you on a performance plan. I'm going to talk to you about who are you targeting? Why are we at 14,000? Are we chasing small companies? Should we go after bigger companies? Are we just taking the first easy sale that comes along and skipping the larger sale that might be possible within an account? Are we discounting? Are we not selling all of our services? What are we doing here? And I'm having that discussion. And this is not sitting down doing a one-on-one and reviewing all my deals. This is saying, Johnny, what do we have to do differently? And I'm coaching him and I'm guiding him to what he needs to do differently. If I look at Sally, again, she was struggling. And if you look at her, hit the button once if you could, her close rate is way off. She's scaring up opportunities like crazy, but they're not closing. Why would that be? A lot of times I find that she's not getting to the right decision makers. She's pricing too early. She's not following the process. She's not building value. She's not differentiating. With her, I probably want to go on some calls and see what she's doing in those early parts of the stage and see if there's something that we need to do better. I'm going to coach her and manage her differently. But I'm having this discussion with her and saying, Sally, you are doing an awesome job scaring them up. We're not converting. Let's talk about why. And now I'm having a different performance discussion with her. Billy's doing a good job. And then Susan, who we talked about in the bottom, yeah, she hit her number, but look at that. Guess what's going to happen to Susan next month, next quarter? She's going to fall off a cliff. She closed the one big deal. And I want to have a different performance discussion with her saying, nice deal, good job, way to go. Kind of concerned about next quarter and what do we need to do to get your pipeline fuller because we don't have enough opportunities to support us next quarter. You can see how data and metrics make a big difference here, and having these things defined is huge. And our discussion changes based on what these metrics are telling us. So go ahead and go forward. And I think the most important place that this happens is in the one-on-one. So this is where we have undivided attention. It is a discussion, much like I was just trying to model a little bit. We're giving direct feedback. It can be 30 minutes. It can be 60 minutes. If I go back to that rep who was carrying 60% of quota, that was a 20-minute check-in meeting each week. He knew what he was doing. I kept him focused. Every once in a while, I go, hey, Dean, we're not getting this stuff done. He'd go, you're right. I need to get back on track. And it was a quick check-in. With the reps who weren't performing, if I look back on Johnny and Sally there, that was a longer discussion. We had to talk about what the issue was. We had to talk about what are they going to do differently. I wanted them to make commitments so I could follow up with those commitments next week. And this is where I love level 10s and I love quarterly conversations, but they miss this piece right here. And I think it's crucial to managing salespeople is we need to have this one-on-one that happens. I like weekly if you can't, if your team is too big, bi-weekly, but something to keep focus on what our strategy is and what we're trying to execute. You click it one more time. So here's what I think is a great agenda. We walk in and we had commitments from our previous one-on-one and we go, did you do them? You did them? Katie, awesome job, way to go. You're on track. We didn't do them. Okay, what got in the way? Because we kind of agreed that these were the most important things you needed to get done. We call them MITs, most important things. Why didn't we get our MITs done? Okay, what do we got to do differently? What came on your plate? Sometimes there's legitimate reasons, but like with this Dean, the 60% guy, a lot of times it's, oh, you're right, I need to get back on track. Great, we've achieved that part of it. Next, I want to recognize success. This is, go back if you could. I want to recognize the successes. I want to talk about things that they did good. Too often, salespeople only hear about things when they've gone bad. I want to say, boy, you closed that deal, that's awesome. Boy, you got more than enough opportunities, more than our goal this week. That's great. What are you doing? Let's talk about that. But I'm reinforcing the right behaviors, especially if we're wanting them to do something different. We're chasing a different market or a different product, or we're trying something new. If they're even trying it or they're getting moderate success, recognize the heck out of it to reinforce that behavior. Then I'm going to have that numbers conversation that I just talked about. I'm looking at their numbers. I'm having them look at their numbers. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm having them come up with the conclusions on what they need to do differently and how. I might agree, I might provide some input, but it's their idea. I might need to do training. You know, back to the earlier comments I made where they're chasing the, we want them to chase new, but they're really farmers. I might need to train them on how do we network? How do we get in the door? How do we generate interest? What does that look like? I might need to do some calls with them. We might need to do some things along those lines. Then we tackle whatever topics they have. And then we get to, okay, let's set our goals for next week. That is an awesome agenda. And what is not on here? What's not on here is, Katie, what's going on with ABC company? Okay, well, you might think about this. You might, here's your strategy, and you might want to call them out. What's going on with ABC company? Oh, okay, blah, blah. This is not a deal review. This is a performance conversation, and we need to have it often. And people say, well, why do we have to do it with salespeople and not with the rest of the company? Salespeople are dictating probably more than other parts of the organization how we're executing the strategy, who we're calling on, how we're calling on them, which business we're pursuing, what are we focused on. And we need to keep them tight, or we need to keep them on the rails, if you will. We don't want to wait a quarter and then find out they're chasing the wrong clients or they're not having enough activity. The revenue needs to be coming in, the activity needs to be coming in. I think with salespeople, you need to meet with them more often. And I emphasize weekly. I think that's important. Okay, go to the next one.
Sorry, we just have a real quick question.
Sure.
Just look if most of a salesperson's job is account management versus prospecting new.
How does it change in that case? Great. I still like to say, what are you doing to it? And account management's an interesting term because some account managers are more, I'll say, customer service oriented. Some account managers are more look for the next opportunity and expand. So regardless, I still want to make sure that they have a plan for the week. There are the important things that they need to do during the week. It might be following up on this issue. It might be identifying a new opportunity. It might be doing a quarterly business review with somebody. The thing is the same. Your metrics might change. Your metrics might be around still number of new opportunities that they're looking to expand. It might be around retention. It might be around contacts within each account. So I don't know how many times I've gone into an organization that an account is responsible for like $500,000 or $1 million, and we have one contact. So their MITs and metrics might be around how many contacts within each account we have. The principle's the same, our metrics might change, but we need to figure out what are the right metrics. And again, I like this format to make sure that they're executing the strategy that we laid out. That's a great question though. Okay, let's move forward. So here's what I like. We call it a sales SOS, sales operating system, or sales management operating system. But this is what we see high performing sales leaders do, and they're a lot less reactive than their counterparts. So we're doing these one-on-one formal meetings with reps. We're doing that weekly or bi-weekly. And here's a fascinating thing too, is we sit with all these sales leaders, we get them together, we get 20 sales leaders in a group, and we say, what are all the things you do as part of your job? And they list out, well, you know, I go on calls with my reps, I deal coach, I put together plans, I do commission, I do expense reports, I sit in leadership meeting, and they list and list and list, and there's 20 things on there. And then I'll ask them, what are the most important things you do with your team that impact revenue? And they'll say, I coach my reps, I go on calls with them, I do my one-on-ones. It's great, I agree with those. And when you get super busy, what are the first things that fall off of your list? One-on-ones and going on coaching. I'm like, why is that? Get out of the stupid meetings. And when we get into high-performing reps, they are doing these religiously. They're doing one-on-ones weekly or bi-weekly. When they coach, it's not just about the deal. It's about deals. That happens all the time. They're doing performance, as we talked about previously. They're training on skills. They're manager coaching to different skills on how do you ask different questions, how do you differentiate, how do you negotiate, and they might even be coaching them on their career. Where do you want to go? How do I help you build those skills? But we're doing a lot more with them, and I'm spending a lot more time in the field. I see less effective sales leaders. They're spending 10 to 20% of their time in the field. These people are spending a lot of time in their field because they know this impacts revenue. And again, we're looking at those key leading indicators and not just lagging indicators. And I'm reinforcing, I'm catching them doing the right thing. I'm reinforcing whatever I want them to do. This is what good looks like. And by the way, CEOs and owners play a big role in this, because if you're not holding them accountable, they have a hard time holding their team accountable. So I would be asking your sales leaders, how often are you having a performance conversation? Not a deal review, not a pipeline review. How often are you having a performance review? What are the key things you're working on with Billy or Susie or Sally or whatever? But you're making sure that they're executing their job. You're keeping them focused as well. This is what a good SOS or sales operating system looks like. Go ahead and go forward, Katie. So what's this all mean? Kind of pulling this all together. Good strategy alone, that doesn't work. I love EOS. I love Resultants. We're great partners. I love everything they do. It has to go a level deeper to make sure that people understand the strategy and are executing it. And as part of that, we're addressing the how and not just the what. And the how is important. That's the plan, that's the process. And even good performers need to stay focused on the right things. So those performance management discussions that I just talked about are crucial to make sure that they're happening. And then finally, CEOs and owners, you play a big role in making sure this happens. You make sure your sales leader is doing the right things that we just talked about today. They have good metrics. They're having those performance conversations. So go ahead and click one more time. I would love to hear, either put it in chat, or Katie, if you want to unmic people and we can talk to a couple people. Love to hear back from you, one or two things that you think that you or your organization can do differently. This is when in-person is so much better.
Okay, I think I have now allowed everyone to talk. So if anybody wants to just speak up, you have to unmute yourself and then you can.
Okay.
So, the first response in chat is make sure the BANT questions are answered.
Absolutely. And I'll make that even a broader statement. Say, we don't skip steps of the process. We have a process and we don't skip steps. Be more committed to executing the process we have in place and follow up on this regular. Yeah, you guys said that early when I asked the question, the follow up. And that's there's follow up that says, how you doing? Are you getting it done? And then there's performance discussions, which are a little bit more detailed. So yes, I agree with that completely. There's got to be some structure to those conversations. Anybody else? Hopefully you got at least one or two things out of today. So if you're thinking about that and you're putting them into chat, also any questions that you have.
So it's a couple more coming in there in chat. Have the salespeople own their own plan?
Absolutely. If it's your plan, it's a stupid plan 100% of the time. If it's their plan, it's a brilliant plan. So let's make sure that they make their own plan. Outlining a sales management process. Management's time in the field. Yeah, it's huge. And that is where they can have the most impact. If you have a sales leader that is in the office a lot, kick them out. Get them out. And this is an interesting time in the time of go-to-meetings and Zooms and Teams meetings and whatnot. It is really easy for sales leaders to tag along and observe their salespeople. This is a great time to maybe have them record it and then send it to you, send it to the sales leader, and the sales leader can provide feedback. So there are downstrokes to obviously this economy and this remote working and all of this, but at the same time, it creates an opportunity for you to be more interactive with your team and see what's going on. I've done it personally here. We've had some new salespeople come on. I've been having them record their calls and send them to me, and then I at my leisure, I can go put in my comments and send them notes back, and it's been working great. They're ramping up much faster.
Gary, how do you feel about having a sales leader join on a discovery meeting? So if it's like a Zoom call and you're meeting in that, that first meeting, how do you feel about the sales leader being there with the sales rep? Do you think that hinders or helps the process?
If you set it up, well, I have several answers to that. One, a lot of times when a sales leader goes on a call with a sales rep, no matter what kind of call, I hate to say it, but too often the sales leader takes over that call. And that's not good. Yes, they're very smart. Yes, they know what they're doing. That's not the goal. The goal is to make the salesperson better because that's more scalable. So we got to get the sales leader to not take over. B, define the roles. So I brought my manager with me today. He's going to talk a little bit about the company or whatnot, and then I'm going to lead the rest of the presentation. And we set up the roles so they're not going, well, what's that guy doing here? What's that girl doing here? So we set up the roles. The main role of the sales leader in that is to observe, find the things they're doing well, find things that they can work on, and then have a discussion afterwards and develop the salesperson. So I think it's really normal. We've all been on the other end of it. And if there's another person on there, the sales leader as well as the salesperson, we get it. We know what's going on. So I think it's crucial to have both people on the call as much as possible. Chad said, if I can focus on one thing we covered today to make an impact with my team, what would that be? I'm not going to say one, I'm going to say two. Have your metrics so you can use those metrics to have decent conversations with your people on a regular basis. If you want to start even really small, make sure your sales leader, and if that's you do this, every week meet with your people and have them define what their MITs are, their most important things. This should be 3 to 5 things that they absolutely think are most important that they need to get done this week. And that could be find 2 new opportunities, get this proposal out, close that deal, whatever it happens to be. If you just started with that and you had a weekly conversation, that advances you. Now, I'd love to have the metrics around that and have more structured conversations and you're following up and you're doing all that. But if that's If you want to take a baby step, that would be the easiest one to take.
There was another really good question that I know that we see a lot with our clients, or that, I've experienced a lot of questions on this. How do you adjust the culture to all of this performance feedback without putting people on the defensive, especially your senior salespeople?
Start with positive. It's funny. When we get hired to go into organizations, you can imagine what the sales team is thinking. Great, the consultants are here. And even more so the sales leader. Oh, great, these guys are going to come in and pick apart whatever I do. So when we go in there, the first thing that we do is we find whatever wins they have. Whatever they're doing well, we go promote the heck out of it. And then you build up that trust, and pretty soon they're going, well, maybe Gary's not so bad. And now I've kind of earned the right to be constructive with you. I think it's the same thing. We're shaping behavior. And if we come in with, we're going to start doing these meetings. Whenever you do change management, the first question you need to answer is why. So if we said we got a strategy in place for this year, this is what we're doing. We want to make sure that we're executing well on the strategy. So we're going to be meeting with you on a regular basis to see how things are going and see if it's working or not. Okay, that sets things up pretty well for why we're doing it. And I sit down with seasoned, tenured, successful salesperson. And it's kind of like the discussion I told you about before with this Dean guy. I go, you know what? You are doing an awesome job. I want to understand the things that you're doing well because I want to share it with the other teams. And my job is not to tell you what to do. My job is to make sure you stay focused. Does that sound fair? Who's going to say no to that? And then when you have a conversation, if you make it negative and beat them over the head and you're not doing what you're supposed to do, they don't want that meeting. If you come in and you have the meeting and you say, wow, Michelle, you have executed this perfectly. You're doing exactly what we want. Good job. By the way, next sales team meeting, would you mind sharing what you're doing? Because you're doing it really well. Now Michelle's going, well, maybe this isn't so bad. Mm-hmm. And after we've done this a couple of times, I go, okay, Michelle, we didn't get all our MITs done this week. What's going on? And I've earned that right because it's not a punitive thing. I'm not beating them over the head. Make it a positive experience. And I use the word I've used a couple of times before, catch them doing the right thing. We're shaping a behavior here. And if they're executing any part of the strategy, yes, that's awesome. If they're not, by the way, if they're not executing everything we want them to do out of the gate when we start this new culture, okay. But let's catch them doing the right things and do that a few times and then start getting constructive as we go. Slowly change that culture. Great question, because that could kill things if we do it wrong.
Great. Were there any other questions that anybody had? If you want, you can just ask them too. You don't have to type them in chat, so either way.
And if you want to follow up with me individually, if you have specific questions for your situation or your company, you want to get one of the tools or something that you saw today, just reach out. My information's on the screen. Be happy to do that. Resultants has been an awesome partner of ours. We work really closely with them, so love to help you any way that we can.
All right. All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Gary.
Gary.
Yeah, I think that's probably all the questions. And like Gary said, reach out to him. His information is right here on the screen. I'm also going to put it in a follow-up email. I guess I can stop sharing for the moment. I'll put it in a follow-up email. And, as I mentioned earlier, we have another event coming up on November 2nd. So I'll get you some more information about that. And anything else? Any parting words, Gary?
No, thank you for everybody for getting up early. Sorry about the technical issues. That stuff happens from time to time, but thanks for hanging with us.